Did you know that love can be deadly? Have you ever wondered how many famous people died because of love? Number 14, Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare's inspiration. Everyone knows the tragic tale of Romeo and Juliet, but did you realize it was based on real people? In the Italian city of Verona during the 1300s lived two young lovers from feuding families, the Montagues and Capulets. Their story inspired Shakespeare's masterpiece about star-crossed lovers who preferred death to separation. While historians debate the exact details, many believe Shakespeare drew from the actual story of these Italian teenagers whose forbidden love ended in a suicide pact. Today, tourists flock to Verona to visit Juliet's balcony and leave love notes on the walls. The couple's tomb has become a pilgrimage site for romantic souls worldwide. Their deaths, though centuries old, continue to symbolize the ultimate sacrifice for love. What makes this story particularly heartbreaking is how young they were, just teenagers who couldn't imagine life without each other. Their family's pointless feud cost them everything, and only in their children's deaths did they finally find peace with one another. Romeo and Juliet's tragic end reminds us how quickly passion can turn to poison when society stands in its way. Number 13, Cleopatra and Mark Antony, Love, Power, and Asps. What happens when two of the ancient world's most powerful figures fall madly in love? Cleopatra, Egypt's cunning and brilliant queen, and Mark Antony, Rome's charismatic general, created one of history's most famous power couples around 40 BCE. Their passionate relationship blended romance and political alliance, threatening Rome's leadership. When Antony's rival Octavian declared war, the lovers faced ultimate defeat at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Rather than be captured and paraded through Rome in chains, Antony falsely heard that Cleopatra had already killed herself. Devastated, he fell on his sword. When brought to Cleopatra still barely alive, he died in her arms. Shortly after, rather than face humiliation as Octavian's prisoner, Cleopatra took her own life, supposedly by letting an asp-poisonous snake bite her. The image of the proud queen applying the deadly serpent to her breast has been immortalized in art for centuries. Their twin suicides effectively ended Egypt's independence, as it became a Roman province. Historians still debate whether Cleopatra truly died for love or political pragmatism, but the romantic version has captured imaginations for over 2,000 years. Their mausoleum has never been found, though archaeologists continue searching for their final resting place. Number 12, Oscar Wilde and Lord Alfred Bocie Douglas, Love That Destroyed a Genius. Can loving the wrong person destroy your life? Oscar Wilde, the brilliant Irish playwright and wit, found out the hard way when he fell for the young, handsome, and reckless Lord Alfred Douglas Bocie in Victorian England. Their relationship proved catastrophic in an era when homosexuality was criminal. Bocie's father, the Marquis of Queensberry, left a calling card at Wilde's club addressing him as a sodomite. Against all advice, Wilde sued for libel in 1895, effectively putting himself on trial. The suit backfired spectacularly when evidence of his homosexuality emerged. Wilde was subsequently arrested, tried, and sentenced to 2 years of hard labor for gross indecency. The brutal prison conditions destroyed his health. After release, Wilde lived in exile in France, broke and broken. He died in Paris in 1900, aged just 46, reportedly saying on his deathbed, "This wallpaper and I are fighting a duel to the death. Either it goes or I do." His love for Bocie had cost him everything: his family, freedom, career, wealth, and ultimately his life. Though they reunited briefly after his imprisonment, their relationship couldn't survive the trauma. Wilde's tomb in Paris's Père Lachaise cemetery is now covered in lipstick kisses from admirers, a stark contrast to how society treated him in life. Number 11, Wallis, Simpson, and King Edward VIII, the throne abandoned for love. Would you give up being king for the person you love? In 1936, King Edward VIII did exactly that when he abdicated the British throne to marry American divorcee Wallis Simpson. Their love affair scandalized a nation and changed the course of British history. Edward had been king for less than a year when he made his shocking decision, declaring in a famous radio broadcast, "I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do without the help and support of the woman I love." The Church of England, which Edward headed as king, forbade marriage to divorced persons whose former spouses were still alive. Faced with choosing between crown and love, Edward chose Wallis. They married in France in 1937 and lived in exile as the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. Though they stayed together until Edward's death in 1972, their life wasn't the fairy tale many imagined. The royal family largely shunned them, and rumors of Nazi sympathies tainted their reputation. Wallis became one of the most hated women in England. After Edward's death, she lived as a recluse in Paris until her own passing in 1986. Though they didn't die directly from their love, their romance effectively killed Edward's life as king and their standing in society. The couple's grave lies at Frogmore in Windsor, where they were finally allowed to rest together on royal ground. Number 10. Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera, Pain, Passion, and Art Until Death. How much suffering can one relationship contain? The turbulent marriage between Mexican artists Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera redefined the meaning of a passionate but painful love. They first met when she was an art student and he was already Mexico's most famous muralist. Despite their 20-year age difference and Rivera's notorious infidelity, they married in 1929, divorced in 1939, and remarried in 1940. Their relationship endured countless affairs, including Rivera's affair with Frida's sister and Frida's relationships with both men and women, miscarriages, and Frida's deteriorating health from a devastating bus accident in her youth. Frida channeled her physical and emotional agony into extraordinary paintings, many depicting her complex feelings for Rivera. "I suffered 2 grave accidents in my life," she once said. "One in which a streetcar knocked me down, the other accident is Diego." Despite everything, they remained each other's greatest love and artistic inspiration. As Frida's health worsened, Diego cared for her despite their tumultuous history. She died in 1954 at just 47, possibly by suicide, though this remains contested. Her last painting was a still life inscribed, "Viva la vida, long live life." Diego was devastated by her death and died 3 years later. In one of her final diary entries, Frida wrote, "I hope the exit is joyful and I hope never to return." Their shared home, La Casa Azul, the Blue House in Mexico City, is now a museum celebrating their extraordinary, albeit tragic, love story. Number 9. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, Criminal Passion That Ended in Bullets. Can love survive on the wrong side of the law? For Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, their passion burned bright but ended in a hail of bullets on a Louisiana road in 1934. These Depression-era outlaws captivated America with their crime spree across the central United States. Bonnie, a 19-year-old waitress, fell hard for Clyde when they met in 1930. Despite his imprisonment shortly thereafter for earlier crimes, she remained devoted, even smuggling a gun into prison to help him escape. Once reunited, they embarked on a 2-year crime spree of robberies and murders, sometimes joined by other members of the Barrow Gang. Unlike the glamorous portrayal in films, their reality was often desperate, sleeping in their car, constantly on the run, and suffering injuries with little medical care. Bonnie wrote poetry about their doomed fate, showing she knew their violent end was inevitable. Law enforcement finally caught up with them on May 23, 1934, ambushing their car with about 130 bullets. They died instantly, still together. Bonnie was just 23 and Clyde 25. Thousands attended their funerals, though they were buried in separate cemeteries at their family's insistence. Souvenir hunters tried to cut off Clyde's finger and ear and snip locks of Bonnie's hair. Their bullet-riddled car tour America to this day, a grim reminder of how their criminal love story was always destined for a violent conclusion. Number 8. Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal, a love memorialized in marble. What would you build to honor your greatest love? When Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan lost his beloved wife Mumtaz Mahal in 1631, he created the world's most magnificent tomb, the Taj Mahal. Their love story began when Prince Khurram, later Shah Jahan, fell in love with Arjumand Banu Begum, later given the title Mumtaz Mahal, meaning chosen one of the palace, at first sight in a marketplace. Though he had other wives as was customary, she was his true love and trusted advisor. During their 19 years of marriage, she bore him 14 children, dying while giving birth to their last child. Devastated by grief, Shah Jahan's hair reportedly turned white overnight. He immediately began planning the Taj Mahal, employing 20,000 workers and 1,000 elephants for 22 years to complete this architectural wonder in Agra, India. While the Taj was being built, Shah Jahan wore only white mourning clothes and reportedly wept so much he damaged his eyesight. In a cruel twist, Shah Jahan's own son later overthrew him and imprisoned him in Agra fort for the last 8 years of his life. His only consolation was a view of the Taj Mahal from his prison window, allowing him to gaze daily upon his tribute to Mumtaz. Upon his death in 1666, Shah Jahan was buried beside his beloved in the Taj Mahal, their bodies positioned so they would face each other on Judgment Day. Their tomb remains one of the world's most visited monuments to love, drawing millions who come to witness what grief and devotion can create. Number 7. Marie and Pierre Curie. Love, science, and radiation poisoning. Can a shared passion for science create the perfect love? For Marie and Pierre Curie, their mutual dedication to scientific discovery created both an extraordinary partnership and ultimately led to tragedy. Meeting in Paris in 1894, Polish-born Marie Skłodowska and French physicist Pierre Curie found in each other both romantic and intellectual soulmates. They married in 1895 and embarked on groundbreaking research together, discovering the elements polonium and radium. In 1903, they shared the Nobel Prize in Physics with Henry Becquerel for their work on radiation, making Marie the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. Neither realized the deadly nature of the radioactive materials they handled daily without protection. They carried test tubes of radioactive isotopes in their pockets and stored them in desk drawers, marveling at how they glowed in the dark. Pierre died suddenly in 1906 when he was struck by a horse-drawn cart in Paris, leaving Marie devastated but determined to continue their work. She won a second Nobel Prize in 1911 for chemistry, but by then the radiation damage was irreversible. Marie died in 1934 of aplastic anemia caused by radiation exposure. Even today, her notebooks remain so radioactive they're stored in lead-lined boxes, and researchers must wear protective gear to handle them. The Curies' shared love of science cost them their lives, but their discoveries revolutionized physics and medicine. Their daughter Irene and her husband Frédéric Joliot Curie continued their legacy, also winning a Nobel Prize and also suffering from radiation-related illnesses. Number 6. F. Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald, the Jazz Age's doomed golden couple. How quickly can the American dream turn into a nightmare? For F. Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald, the answer was just a few short years. They embodied the roaring 20s, young, beautiful, talented, and wildly in love when they married in 1920. Scott's novel This Side of Paradise had just made him famous at 23, and Zelda, a Southern belle from Alabama, was his glamorous muse. They dove headfirst into a life of parties, alcohol, and extravagance, splitting time between New York, Paris, and the Riviera. Scott's masterpiece, The Great Gatsby, drew heavily from their tumultuous relationship. But beneath the champagne and jazz lurked tragedy. Scott's alcoholism worsened while Zelda struggled with mental illness, eventually being diagnosed with schizophrenia. Their fights became legendary, both verbal and physical. Zelda accused Scott of stealing her writing for his novels, while he resented her artistic ambitions as competition. By 1930, Zelda was in and out of mental institutions, undergoing brutal treatments including electroshock therapy. Scott's career faltered as he drank more heavily, trying to support Zelda's medical expenses by writing Hollywood screenplays he despised. He died of a heart attack in 1940, aged just 44, believing himself a failure. Zelda perished 8 years later in a hospital fire while awaiting electroshock therapy, unable to escape because she was locked in a room. The couple who once epitomized the Jazz Age's brilliance ended their lives broken, separated, and largely forgotten, only to be rediscovered and mythologized decades after their deaths. Number 5. John and Yoko, love silenced by an assassin's bullets. Can love survive the pressures of global fame? John Lennon and Yoko Ono's relationship suggests it can, until an obsessed fan decides otherwise. When Beatle John Lennon met avant-garde artist Yoko Ono at a London gallery in 1966, few could have predicted their intense connection would change music history and end in tragedy. Their relationship scandalized fans who blamed Yoko for breaking up the Beatles and criticized their provocative peace activism, including their famous bed-ins for peace. Despite harsh public judgment, they remained fiercely devoted to each other. After a brief separation, they reunited and welcomed their son Sean in 1975, after which John stepped back from music to become a house husband, while Yoko managed their business affairs. In 1980, John returned to recording with their collaborative album, Double Fantasy. Just 3 weeks after its release, on December 8, 1980, John was shot 4 times outside their New York apartment building by Mark David Chapman, a disturbed fan who had asked for Lennon's autograph earlier that day. John died in Yoko's arms in the police car, rushing to the hospital. Devastated, Yoko remained in the Dakota building where they'd lived, preserving John's studio exactly as he left it. She continued his peace activism and managed his legacy while raising their son. Fans still gather at Strawberry Fields, the Central Park memorial across from where he was killed, especially on the anniversaries of his birth and death. The man who wrote All You Need Is Love had his life ended because of someone's twisted obsession with him. Number 4. Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen, punk rock self-destructive romance. What happens when two damaged souls find each other in a world of drugs and punk rock? For Sex Pistols bassist Sid Vicious, born John Simon Ritchie and Nancy Spungen, their chaotic relationship defined punk's darkest side before ending in bloodshed at New York's Chelsea Hotel. They met in 1977 when American groupie Nancy, who struggled with mental illness since childhood, came to London chasing punk musicians. Their instant attraction pulled them into a codependent spiral of heroin addiction. As Sid's band disintegrated during their disastrous 1978 U.S. tour, the couple moved into New York's Chelsea Hotel, room 100. On October 12, 1978, Nancy was found dead in their bathroom with a single knife wound to her abdomen. Sid, barely coherent from drugs, was arrested for her murder. The truth of what happened remains contested. Some believe Sid killed her in a drug haze, others suspect a drug dealer who visited that night. Released on bail, Sid attempted suicide and entered rehab briefly. On February 2, 1979, after a celebration dinner with friends marking his sobriety, 21-year-old Sid overdosed on heroin his mother had procured for him. Though officially ruled accidental, many believe it was suicide. Sid had reportedly told friends, "I want to be with my Nancy." His mother later scattered some of his ashes over Nancy's grave. Their tragic, drug-fueled relationship lasted barely a year but became mythologized in films like Sid and Nancy, epitomizing how quickly punk's live fast mantra could turn deadly. Number 3. Anthony Armstrong Jones and Princess Margaret, royal heartbreak behind palace walls. What's worse, a loveless royal marriage or a scandalous divorce? Princess Margaret, Queen Elizabeth II's younger sister, experienced both after her first true love was deemed unsuitable. When the church and government prevented her marriage to divorced group Captain Peter Townsend in 1955, heartbroken Margaret eventually settled for photographer Anthony Armstrong Jones, later Lord Snowdon. Their 1960 wedding was the first royal marriage televised to the world. Initially, they were a glamorous couple who embraced the swinging 60s, hosting parties with celebrities and artists. But behind closed doors, their relationship quickly soured with infidelity on both sides. Their arguments became legendary for their cruelty. Snowdon would leave vicious notes for Margaret, including lists of things I hate about you. As their marriage crumbled, both took multiple lovers while maintaining a public facade. Margaret's affair with landscape gardener Roddy Llewellyn, 17 years her junior, finally triggered their 1978 divorce, the first in the royal family since King Henry VIII. After the divorce, Margaret's health deteriorated through heavy drinking and smoking. She suffered multiple strokes before dying in 2002, having never found lasting love. Snowdon remarried but later divorced again, dying in 2017. The damage from their toxic marriage affected Margaret for life, contributing to her depression and self-destructive behaviors. Their children, David and Sarah, witnessed years of psychological warfare between their parents. Margaret once reflected, "Disobedience is my joy," but her rebellion against royal expectations brought her little happiness in the end. Number 2. Virginia Woolf and Leonard Woolf, Love versus Mental Illness. Can love save someone determined to end their own life? For novelist Virginia Woolf and her husband Leonard, the answer proved tragically negative despite his unwavering devotion. Virginia and Leonard married in 1912, forming not just a marriage but an intellectual partnership that included founding the influential Hogarth Press. While their relationship lacked conventional passion, Virginia once described it as a marriage of minds. Leonard provided Virginia with steady support through her numerous mental health crises. Virginia had struggled with what would now likely be diagnosed as bipolar disorder since childhood, experiencing severe depressive episodes and hearing voices. Leonard kept meticulous diaries tracking her moods, arranged doctors, managed her diet, and created a stable environment for her writing. His dedication enabled her to produce masterpieces like Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse. But on March 28, 1941, during World War II and fearing another mental breakdown was imminent, 59-year-old Virginia filled her pockets with stones, walked into the River Ouse near their home, and drowned herself. In her final letter to Leonard, she wrote, "I owe all the happiness of my life to you. You have been entirely patient with me and incredibly good. I can't go on spoiling your life any longer." 3 weeks passed before her body was found. Leonard continued to champion Virginia's work after her death, ensuring her literary legacy. He had once written in his autobiography that their relationship was the most important thing in my life, making her suicide an especially cruel end to his devoted care. He never remarried, dying in 1969 still as Virginia Woolf's husband. Number 1. Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love, grunge's first couple ends in tragedy. Do two troubled souls make each other better or worse? When Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain met Hole singer Courtney Love in 1990, they created rock's most controversial couple, passionate, creative, and ultimately doomed. United by music, similar difficult childhoods, and a shared drug problem, they married in February 1992 on Hawaii's Waikiki Beach. 6 months later, their daughter Frances Bean was born amid allegations of heroin use during pregnancy, triggering a brief custody battle. Their relationship fascinated and repelled the public, with many Nirvana fans blaming Courtney for Kurt's escalating drug use and erratic behavior. Friends described a passionate but volatile relationship, with both artistic temperaments clashing frequently. As Nirvana's success exploded with Nevermind, Kurt struggled with fame, chronic stomach pain, depression, and deepening heroin addiction. Despite multiple interventions and rehab attempts, on April 5, 1994, 27-year-old Kurt took his life with a shotgun at their Seattle home, leaving a suicide note addressed to his childhood imaginary friend, his daughter, and finally Courtney. "Please keep going, Courtney, for Frances, for her life which will be so much happier without me." Courtney, while often villainized by fans who spread conspiracy theories about her involvement in his death, was genuinely devastated. At his public memorial, she read portions of his suicide note and gave items of his clothing to grieving fans. Though she has continued her music and acting career, Courtney has never fully escaped being defined by her relationship with Kurt, telling one interviewer, "I'm not his spokesperson on Earth. I don't know why the hell I have to explain his death to so many people." How many more lovers will join this tragic list? Who will be the next famous couple to sacrifice everything for love?